The embers of the campfire flickered, painting the faces of Liam, Chloe, and Maya in shifting hues of orange and red. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a perfect encapsulation of their annual escape into the heart of the ancient woods. They had spent the evening recounting old university escapades, laughing until their sides ached, and now a comfortable silence had settled, punctuated only by the crackle of burning logs and the distant hoot of an owl. Chloe was stirring the last of her hot chocolate. Liam was sketching idly in his notebook, and Maya was gazing up at the impossibly bright tapestry of stars. It was a moment of profound peace, the kind that only wilderness can offer, a quiet balm for the hurried pace of everyday life. Then it began. Softly at first, so subtly that for a moment they each wondered if it was just the wind sighing through the canopy, or perhaps a trick of their own tired minds. But it wasn't the wind. It was a melody carried on the gentle currents of the night air. A distinct melody with clear, gentle voices. Liam was the first to tilt his head, a slight frown creasing his brow. Chloe paused, her mug halfway to her lips, her gaze drifting towards the dense darkness beyond their campsite. Maya lowered her hand, her eyes now fixed on her friends, a silent question forming between them. Did you hear that?" Chloe whispered, her voice barely audible above the quiet hum of the night. Liam nodded slowly. "Singing?" Maya wrapped her arms around herself, though the night wasn't particularly cold. Who would be out here and singing that late? The melody continued, a simple, familiar tune. It was a lullaby, without question. But not just any lullaby. As the voices, a harmony of soft, unidentifiable tones, swelled just a fraction, a wave of profound recognition washed over all three of them simultaneously. It was the lullaby, the very one their parents had sung to them as children, the one that, by some remarkable coincidence, they had all discovered was a shared cornerstone of their earliest memories during their first year of university, sparking a bond that had only deepened over the years. "It's Whisperwind Lane," Liam breathed, his voice laced with an unsettling mix of wonder and unease. Chloe's eyes were wide, but none of us are singing. And it was true. They sat there, frozen, their breath held tight in their chests, listening to the impossible. The voices were gentle, sweet even, yet the context made them terrifying. No other campers were known to be in this isolated section of the park. They were miles from the nearest road, days from the closest town. And even if there were, what were the chances they'd be singing their lullaby? The first verse drifted from what felt like 100 yards away, somewhere deep in the tree line behind their tents. It was almost ethereal, like a memory given form. But then, as the last notes of the first verse faded, the second began, and it was closer, undeniably closer. They exchanged fearful glances, a silent agreement passing between them. Do not speak, do not move, just listen. The crackle of the fire seemed deafening now, the hoot of the owl a jarring intrusion into the impossible melody. The second verse continued, the words clear now, imbued with an unnerving intimacy. Sleep, my dear, the day is done, dreams now softly spun. The voices were still gentle, still harmonious, but the proximity sent a shiver down Chloe's spine. It felt as though the singers had moved silently, effortlessly, through the dense undergrowth, closing the distance with unnatural speed. By the time the third verse began, they felt as though the voices were just beyond the thin canvas of their tents, circling them. It was no longer coming from a singular direction, but from all around, a soft, harmonious ring that encompassed their entire campsite. The familiarity of the lullaby, once comforting, was now the most unsettling aspect of the experience. It was as if the woods themselves had reached out, plucked a cherished piece of their childhood, and twisted it into an instrument of profound unease. They huddled closer to the dying fire, their shadows stretching long and distorted in the flickering light. Every instinct screamed at them to run, to shout, to break the spell. Yet they remained paralyzed, mesmerized by the strange, unearthly chorus. The voices never faltered, never changed in pitch or tempo. They simply continued, verse after verse, each one bringing the singers, whatever they were, closer still. When the lullaby reached its final verse, the one that traditionally brought closure and peace, the voices seemed to be right outside their tent flaps, so close they could almost feel a breath, a presence. It was the same lullaby, the same words, but the comfort it once held had been utterly stripped away, replaced by an icy primal dread. They lay there, rigid, their eyes wide open in the darkness, until the very last note faded into the pre-dawn quiet, swallowed by the vast, silent indifference of the ancient forest. They didn't speak a word until the first sliver of dawn painted the sky a pale lavender. They packed up their camp in silence, their movements efficient, almost frantic. The easy camaraderie of the previous evening had been replaced by a quiet shared understanding of something inexplicable. They left the woods that morning with a different kind of memory, one that lingered like a chill long after they had returned to the familiar sounds of civilization. That night, deep in the woods, they heard the lullaby they knew, sung by voices that weren't their own. And in their silence, it felt as though they sang along, not with their voices, but with the beating of their hearts. It was a reminder of how fragile our sense of security can be, and how the familiar can, in an instant, become profoundly unsettling when touched by the unknown. It taught them that sometimes the most profound mysteries are not found in the monstrous, but in the echoes of a childhood tune played back by an unseen choir. What are your thoughts on moments where comfort turns to unease? Have you ever experienced something that defied explanation, leaving you with more questions than answers? Share your stories in the comments below, or connect with us on social media. We always appreciate hearing your unique perspectives and experiences. Until next time, stay curious and perhaps keep your ears open for the whispers in the woods.